In my honest opinion, a great way to begin this brand new year of 2025 is to either begin your stockpile or go over your existing stockpile and find out ways that you can improve upon it. Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Jan. Welcome to another episode of my channel, Save Money More with Jan channel. I realized something. It's like a light bulb went off on my head. You know when I realized this? Of all times, New Year's Eve last week. Literally, New Year's Eve last week, a light bulb went off in my head. I said a lot of people would be ahead of the game if they do the following basic thing first. And what would that be, Jan? That would be to go over your basic pantry essentials. You see, a lot of times we want to make things from scratch, and then we realize, hey, wait a minute, I ran out of oil or any oil. I don't have any Crisco. Things that like you can make so easily if you have had the pantry, what I would consider pantry essential in your home or apartment or your space. Okay. Even if you get a smaller quantity of it, let's say you're by yourself, you get the smaller size. But by keeping these things around, like baking essentials, for example, I'm relearning the joy of working with flour. It is not as intimidating as I used to think it was, let's say 25 years ago. But then sometimes I get so caught up and so busy doing other things. I'm like, back burner it. I don't want to back burner it. So I'm making a resurgence of it. So I mean, I'm admitting that. I'm just letting you know that. And by doing that, I'm realizing I could save a ton of money, have fresher stuff available anytime I want, and regenerate more purposeful meals. Oh, yes. So, what are some of the pantry essentials that I consider would be? That would be, for example, pasta, grains, seasoning, spices, some canned goods, definitely the ability to bake. Baking staples. I mean, we could do so much. You could even make your own pasta from scratch so easily. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing like convenient dried pasta. But if you ever paid for fresh pasta in the grocery section, in like the refrigerator section, that's not necessarily a cheap thing to purchase. And fresh pasta cooks up like in a jiff, like 2 to 3 minutes max, many times. You can easily make those noodles yourself. It's just like there are ways and there are ways. But I've come to the conclusion that if we don't start building out essential pantry items first, it's like trying to build up a house on zero foundation. It's not going to work. It's like building a beautiful house and leaving it on the sand for it to just sink right through. Can't happen. We have to have a strong, solid foundation. So if you could get yourself in the mood to looking through your inventory, that's where it has to start first. Sometimes we just don't inventory it. Let's think of a grocery store. Where would they be if they didn't inventory their stock? What if the folks there didn't know what's on their shelves, what's gone, what needs to be replaced? That wouldn't work too long. The store would end up closing. You can't have a store like that. But we have our own little miniature grocery stores, if you will. Let's think about that for those of us who have been trying to build up our grocery stockpile in the form of our certain pantries, longer term, shorter term, and active, and all that stuff. But if we haven't looked at our basic essentials in a while, hmm, that's not pretty good at all. Things to consider. Check out, how are you doing with condiments? How are your condiments? How many times did you want a hamburger and then you thought you had a ton of barbecue sauce or ketchup or whatever it is you like to put on your burger? Everybody's different. And you presume, oh, you have another bottle in your in your stockpile in your pantry. You go to look, it's like, huh? No, it's not. Never forget the old-fashioned expression that I only learned a couple of years ago, but it's a good one. One is none and two is one. Wow. How true or can that be? I mean, that is like so, so true. There are other things that's so noteworthy to keep. Bouillon, whatever flavor you prefer and work with. I like chicken. I like to keep the chicken bouillon. I like to keep the beef bouillon. I noticed that I use the chicken bouillon more often than the beef. Some people prefer to use the vegetable one. Some people prefer to use the tomato-based one. That's a really good one, and it's oftentimes overlooked. Salt is something that you can use forever and ever and ever, even if you have nothing to jazz up whatever you're cooking, because you're on an extremely tight budget. Adding a little salt to that soup, for example, can make a huge difference from drinking plain hot water versus at least a little bit of flavor. These things are very important. So, my big tip for right now on this, as I'll continue to call it, a We Can Do It Wednesday, is this: inventory your current stockpile. If you haven't started one at all, start with the absolute basics. The absolute basics being, for example, getting things like grains, pasta, beans, spices, canned goods, and baking staples. That is truly, truly an important thing to keep. Of course, for our emergency time, always make sure that you have water. And we've gone over that, and we'll talk more about that in the future. Now, here's another way to stay ahead of your grocery bill ahead of time. What? Stay ahead? Yes. Lots of times people wait for a certain time of the year to do no spending. I want to talk more about that on the next video upcoming. But there are ways and there are ways. And there definitely is a method to stay ahead of the game. Sometimes people get nervous because their grocery budget can fall behind because of, rising prices with certain things. Hey, if you can get a good deal on the thing that you use, your family loves, that is the time to strike while the iron is hot. And there were many to be found, post holiday season, because people want to clear the shelves for the so-called healthier stuff, if you will. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. I'm just saying, I'm just quoting their terminology. But there's a method of which you can keep ahead of the game, even if you're a brand new beginner at stockpiling. If you could think ahead, I'm not talking about like 6 months down the road either. I'm talking about like 1 month down the road. Remember, I like to do things in smaller increments, in baby bites. I find that that is absolutely a much more manageable way to handle everything. It's really beyond amazing. I'm just saying. All right, everybody. I want to thank you so very much for being here. Why? Because I really do appreciate your time. But I do have a favor to ask of you. If you haven't done so yet, please click the like button. That way YouTube knows that, well, you stayed on this long and you do enjoy the video content. I do want to talk to you on the next video about getting ahead of the game when it comes to grocery shopping. That way, it saves you money. We're all in for saving money, aren't we? Especially with this brand new year. Take good care and have a wonderful day. Don't forget to click like, share, and subscribe.